So I'd like to thank again Alex, Kate and Kathy. Little chapters in a book, little stitches, thousands and thousands and thousands of little stitches in the most difficult places, but with the most beautiful poetic titles. So Breaks and Joins, Keepsake Chronicles, The Quiet Path. I stumbled across The Quiet Path, which is a project which Louise Dempsey will come to talk about in a moment. And I stumbled across it because I was at a meeting of people that work in palliative care and acute hospitals. So a medical meeting. And Louise is a clinical nurse specialist in neonatal care in Cavan and Monaghan General. And what struck me when I first heard this project was artists are everywhere. Creative people are everywhere. We limit ourselves if we only look for artists as artists. That actually creativity comes from all sorts of motivations and all sorts of reasons. And I want to invite you to listen and to reflect on this one, A Quiet Path.
Baby mine, don't you cry. Baby mine, dry your eyes. Rest your head close to my heart, never to part, baby of mine.
On a quiet morning, in a quiet room, an early pregnancy scan falls quiet. Not a word except, I'm sorry. Parents quietly listen to the advice and the guidance for the quiet delivery of their lost child. In a quiet scanning room, a set of specialist eyes quietly identifies an issue which changes the course of this life for this baby. A trisomy, a complexity, a life-limiting diagnosis, a fragile baby that cannot be fixed. Quiet words, silence, and then tears as parents quietly confront shattered dreams, grief in anticipation, uncertainty, and quiet screams of why our baby. A multidisciplinary team waits quietly and patiently for them, options quietly discussed to support their needs in the hope that we can help them to hold it together. A baby quietly living and quietly dying. Compassionate interruption of pregnancy, perinatal hospice care, comfort care, reflection, remembrance, and prayer during those quiet moments and shared humanity. On a quiet afternoon, a brave and courageous mother endures the pangs of labour to deliver her baby. Their still and quiet baby, perfect to the eye but without a cry. A father watches on with a tear in his eye, an ache in his heart. The questions, the whys, the what-ifs, the should-haves, the could-haves, and the maybes. Saying goodbye at the same time as saying hello. Birth and death hand in hand. So so unkind, so unfair, and so unjust. This time he can't take the burden for her. He can't instinctively protect. He walks alongside her quietly. On a quiet evening, a family carries their baby on the quiet path to re-emerge with the world once again, a world which is forever changed. A quiet car in waiting, no words, just a white baby coffin. Home for extended family support. Perhaps a quiet burial with a loved one already gone to rest. Perhaps cremation the logistics of which are just too difficult to face, and glad to have a helping hand with the consent forms. Or perhaps all of this is just too much, so the hospital burial plot is a welcomed option. Bury our baby with the other angels. Don't let her be on her own. The quiet rest, or in Irish, an Cullacuan. Michelangelo's Madonna della Pietà, the moment when Mother Mary is handed her dying son. Notice how the sculpture doesn't depict shouts of help or feverish efforts to fix, but instead it captures quiet acceptance of circumstances beyond earthly control. A sense of quiet anguish, despair, and pain, balanced with a quiet sense of holding that loss, of accompanying that journey of loss. A quiet human moment captured, reminding us of our role within perinatal care. The quieter you become, the more that you hear. Welcome to Cavan and Monaghan Hospitals' Maternity Quiet Path, a space which aims to allow the ache of loss and the work of heal to work together in the one space, equally intertwined and supported quietly, safely, and privately, allowing families somewhat to escape from the clinical to the personal, while all the time keeping that multidisciplinary team close by. Now, as human beings, we all have the innate ability to deal with grief. It's instinctive within us. It's a human response to a human experience. But the loss of a baby or a child is more complex. It goes against natural order. It shatters basic human beliefs. And parents are undoubtedly more vulnerable of the risk of complicated grief or traumatic grief. However, evidence does tell us that if families are appropriately guided at the beginning of their journey of grief, if they're nourished and they're supported, that they can navigate that grief and they can use those intrinsic abilities to avoid the feeling of loss becoming feelings of being lost. The natural ability to cope with grief is described by Shobi and Schutt around the dual process theory of grief. Two types of coping, the loss coping and the restoration coping. What we hear is the good days and the bad days, the good moments and the bad moments. Facing that loss through honouring, through naming, through memorialising of their babies, all the memory making, the religious and cultural rituals, the reality of the loss, coupled with facing survival to a new world without that child, living with the imprint of their baby and learning to carry a new reality. And that movement or oscillation between managing the loss and managing continuing to live. This is their work of grief. This is their mastering of their loss, moment by moment, hour by hour. As staff, we guide, enlighten, and normalise the reckless movement from emotion to emotion. Again, the good moments and the bad moments. Grief is not linear, it's messy. It requires patience, time, gentleness, diligence, and space to navigate. We used to believe that the aim of grief was to shrink the grief, to make it more manageable. But in actual fact, the end point only comes when you learn to carry that grief, to own it, and to grow your life to accommodate it. So what is the quiet path? Well, in current terms, the HSE might describe it as a bundle of care, but I like to think of it more as a philosophy or an attitude or even a melody of care, combining human compassion, empathy, gentle communication and support, with all of the safety structures that are guided both nationally and internationally and locally, all of the specific regulations and governance, and running it in absolute commitment to safety, to quality, to equality of care, alongside our obligation to ethical framework, and to, above all, do no harm. Multidisciplinary team effort is held steadfast with continuity of care from an obstetric consultant-led team and the practice of named midwifery. Roles, strengths, qualities and abilities supported within a culture of lifelong learning and respectful collaboration. This is our quiet room. Now, the quiet room is a family-based space. It's used in the mornings by the early pregnancy unit for consultation following pregnancy loss. Families can sit together, they can have a warm cup of tea, and discussions are had regarding options of treatment following perinatal loss. Practical and emotional consequences of loss are considered, and oftentimes we can uncover other coexisting issues which we can address, support, and give voice to. Medical treatment for miscarriage can be commenced in this room. Post-mortem and cytogenetic sampling can be done in the adjoining workspace and the baby mortuary space. The room offers quiet space for extended family and grandparents and siblings to come and spend quiet time with their baby. This is also a space where hospital chaplaincy team can come for quiet prayer and guidance. Care in the quiet room introduces the bereavement theories of continued bonds, the memory making, the placing of this baby into the heart of the family. This is and always will be your baby, despite the tragic loss. And the theory of narration will also commence in here. This is the sharing and the telling of their story, also known as cognitive rehearsal. And through this talking and journaling, making sense sometimes occurs. Families receive a journal offered by a Little Lifetime Foundation to commence that valued first step of grief work. We gently broach complex perspectives and dimensions of grief. Sibling loss is the forefront on parents' minds. How do we break the news to the children? How will they cope? How can we support them with something of this magnitude? Supporting parents by giving them tools to support the children is part of the healing and is done in conjunction with other online websites like the Irish Childhood Bereavement Network and Bernardo's. These are Féileacán sibling teddy bears, and they're used a little like the bereavement symbol as a non-verbal cue given to children to use to express their bond and their grief. The second step of our quiet path is to the patient room, or the quiet blossom room. In many cases, depending on the gestation of their loss, this is the room where mom will quietly blossom their baby and where they will stay for the duration of their time with us. Imagery of the cherry blossom echoes throughout the quiet path, not only for its delicate beauty, but also for the connotations of the strength of family tree, coupled with the fragility of each leaf and each blossom on that tree. Each family are offered the gift of time via the cuddle cot, a cooling system, which means that baby can stay in the room with them all the time without the need for cool mortuary facilities. The gift of remembrance, the vital continued bond, is given via the use of Phelicon memory box, the inkless baby wipes for hand and footprints, measuring tape for a length, the little teddy bears which are swapped over between mother and baby. Memory making continues also via our Luca's Wings ceramic hand and footprints. Local Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep photographer Fiona Byrne is at hand if desired by parents to capture special moments with the baby in her gift of professional photographs. Our multidisciplinary team, who, sensitive to the bereavement symbol, call in to update, to examine, to assess, to support, to clean and to offer food, all the tea and scones that they can muster, all to offer some sympathy and a sense of solidarity. We are with you. Post-mortem examination, burial, cremation, postnatal care of mammy, lactation suppression, physiotherapy following delivery and baby registration, a myriad of information, all while trying not to overburden or overwhelm. Preparation is made in this room also for discharge, a massive and frightening step out of this safe, quiet bubble and into the community, a world forever changed. And despite being burdened and beaten, despite being worn out and heartbroken, there's still a sense of all being okay because of the quiet path and the work that it encompasses. This brings us to the third space along our quiet journey, the quiet discharge path or the quiet path. Leaving the quiet blossom room and passing by the quiet room and taking a lift to a new entrance point in the hospital called the quiet path, away from a busy hospital foyer, somewhere where a car can be brought right up to the door and where they are accompanied away from the building. Community support systems have been put in place, GP, public health nurse, counselling support, consultant follow-up, and my own bereavement support, which is tailored to the needs of each family. The fourth and final step in our perinatal loss journey is the hospital burial space, the quiet rest or an Colacuen, attached to the majestic Cathedral of St. Patrick and St. Phelim in Cavan. Cullagh's graveyard is the main cemetery for the county. A plot of sacred space was offered to us from the parish, and we created this beautiful option for families to lay their babies to rest. Families are guided and supported through the options of private burial, hospital burial, here in the quiet rest and cremation. Our annual Children's Remembrance Service has been running for 19 years, with the exception of 2 pandemic years, where we were remembered while we were apart. These are some of the images that parents sent to me to reassure me that although we were apart, the candles were lit and remembrance was happening all across the region. During our service, we light a bespoke candle, the ash candle, made for us from blessed wax used in mass services in the cathedral in Monaghan. This candle is lit for families who can't join us at the service. The Children's Book of Remembrance contains over 800 names of babies and children within our community from as far back as the 1940s. The book is kept in the hospital oratory and brought to the service of remembrance each year. The Children's Remembrance Tree was created in 2015. Beads were held by families, by siblings and by staff throughout the service. Imagery of holding on to the story, the love, that continued bond was gently discussed during the service, and then the handing over and the relinquishing of their baby in the returning and regathering of the beads. This beautiful piece of art was then created by a local community art group, each bead hand-stitched. It was accepted to be part of the Create Art exhibition in 2018 and spent a year on the road, starting right here in the Science Gallery in Trinity, and then moving on to St. Peter's Gallery in Cork, and finally to the foyer of Galway University Hospital. When applying for the Design and Dignity grant from the Irish Hospice Foundation, they looked for an exemplar idea or design element. Inspiration from this tree, won us the award. And now that's why cherry blossom is used throughout our quiet path. This is Teddy Nalani, the children's teddy bear, and it was created for us by a group of transition year art students in a local girls' secondary school to honour and pay tribute to siblings who have lost a brother or sister. It's used every year at the Service of Remembrance, and it gave us the opportunity to meet with the young people of County Cavan. The pregnancy following loss, or the rainbow pregnancy, is always a turbulent or distressing one. The worry, the fear that the loss may happen again, reliving and replaying the loss. This is Vélon's rainbow gift. It's just a small token at the end of that journey. Cardigans, blankets, offered to rainbow babies and made from our community people. We light up every year for pregnancy and infant awareness, to bring voice to the community, to ensure that it's not just a subject that's hidden away, but to celebrate the love that we have for these babies and the courage that each and every family has on their quiet journey, on their quiet path of perinatal loss. The quiet path is the merging of unrelenting parental love with professional love expressed through all of these philosophies and values. It is true to say that human love and compassion is shared within the quiet spaces of our quiet path, and I am extremely honoured and privileged to be part of this team and this care. Thank you.